tricking your parents into thinking you're reading when you're really just on your phone. Actually reading because reading is friggin' fun. Tricking your parents into thinking you're on your phone when you're really just reading. Tricking your parents into thinking you're on your phone when you're really just a book. Tricking your parents into thinking you're a book, but really you're just a phone. Tricking your book into thinking you are your phone, but really you are your parents. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I require insulin to live, multiple times a day. When I was in middle school many years ago, we didn't have insulin pumps and had to use syringes and vials like everyone else. The school refused to let me carry it with me, meaning I had to go to the nurse's office several times a day to inject. It's not just before lunch, but could be any number of times depending on the current blood sugar levels. The district then cut nurse staff to just spending half a day at 2 schools, and the nurse left before I had lunch. I asked the office staff to unlock the office so I could take my insulin and eat lunch. They refused. By middle school, I'd been dealing with type 1 for about 5 years and didn't take crap on the topic. I went to the school lobby, picked up the payphone, I just dated myself, and called 911, telling them, "Hi, I'm at school, I'm type 1 diabetic, and the office won't unlock a door and let me take insulin." They sent a fire truck, and a bunch of firemen met me outside and walked me to the office and asked, while ignoring the staff, which room was the nurse's office. I pointed to the door, and he was like, "Okay, boys, chop it down. This kid needs his insulin." Suddenly, the office secretary could unlock the door, and I didn't need to put it in the nurse's office every day anymore. So imagine a D&D character whose whole motivation is, X guy killed my parents and I need to find them. And the party just thinks, okay, revenge quest, that's normal. But when they finally find the person with dead parents is just like, "Hey buddy, long time no see. It's a shame we got separated. Here's some money." And they're super chill. The party is just confused and goes, "Wait, why are you giving him gold?" The guy just goes, "'Cause I owe him money?" The party, "But he killed your parents? That's why I owe him money." Add to it by occasionally making comments like, "There's a debt that needs to be settled," and "They'll get what they deserve." The second dish you'll need to prepare, biscuits and gravy. I thought Alton say brisket and gravy. This is the single saddest thing I've ever seen on Cutthroat Kitchen. The contestant didn't speak English as a first language. Due to this, the judge didn't judge his dish as biscuits and gravy, but as brisket and gravy, and the contestant moved on to the next round. After this, Alton started explaining the dish he was asking them to make more in detail to make sure it didn't happen again. The correct way to react to language miscommunication. Ranking the best things I've heard surgeons say mid-surgery. 5-second rule while scrubbed after dropping a sterile scalpel on the floor. No, they did not pick it up again, but I swear everyone's butt's puckered. Spoken during the closing of a particularly long and difficult case. Nurse, my tunes. Heavy metal starts blasting. Gently to a fretful patient. Pre-anesthesia. It's going to be okay, I promise. I've dealt with worse. As soon as the patient is unconscious. This is literally the worst thing I've ever seen. Okay, this one was a med student. Wow, that's so gross! Reg, please remember that patient is awake for this procedure. Student to patient, oh my god, I'm so sorry. That was really unprofessional. Patient, cheerfully, also engrossed with what's happening inside them on the screen. Nah, it's like super gross, right? I have corneal dystrophy, so my corneas will just kind of tear for no reason, quite frequently. Cause of death, blink too hard. So one time I was in the eye hospital, I'd been there the day before and a junior doc dismissed me entirely as nothing being wrong, sent me off with no treatment and my optician was not having it. Self-same junior doc eye rolled and when it was clear I wouldn't be leaving again, begrudgingly called in the consultant who took one glance at my eye, said, "Oh my god," and sent for a second consultant who took one look and said, "I've never seen anything like it," and sent for a third who took a quick look and said, "Wow, Jesus, what a mess," and sent for the fourth, etc. Junior doc getting progressively more embarrassed the whole time. Anyway, both of my corneas have torn so many times, it's apparently just a mess of scar tissue. But if you were wondering what's worse than one doctor exclaiming in surprise with zero info, it's having the entire department do it in succession. I saw someone call AI a Thneed, and I can't stop thinking about it. It's a perfect analogy. The Thneed was an all-purpose tool that didn't do anything really useful. It was a fad that did major damage to the environment to make the Onceler a billionaire. It left no real lasting impact, only damage. A Thneed is a highly versatile object knitted from the foliage of a truffula tree. According to the Onceler, it is a fine something that all people need. It costs $3.98, approximately $30.67 adjusted for inflation. A Thneed pillow. Note how it duplicated itself. Damn. It really is ChatGPT. My cat has started to use vacuum as a curse word. Basically the title. I gave him a vacuum button because the vacuum is stressful for him, and I wanted to be able to clearly communicate that the vacuum was going to happen and let him know vacuum all done. He definitely knows what it means, because when the vacuum is running, he'll push vacuum repeatedly and also add nervous in there too. But now he started spamming vacuum after I tell him no, like he's using it as a curse word. For example, he'll ask for snacky when we just got done with snacky, and I'll say snacky all done, and then he'll go spam the vacuum button. Yeah, okay bud, I hear you loud and clear that you feel vacuum about snacky all done. Yes, we support Kinect. This game supports Kinect? Yes, on PC only. If you plug in a Kinect 2.0 to your computer while the game is open, you can play through the entirety of the game using Kinect controls. Grab meat with your meat hands. Your body is the controller. We live in the future. Good luck. Is Kinect the optimal way to play Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator? Absolutely not. Why would I play a fast-paced, reflex-based economic tycoon using Kinect? I have no earthly idea, but I'm personally saying the first person to direct message me documented proof of using a Kinect to play through the entirety of the campaign, reaching the top 0.1% reputation level, a $50 Steam gift card, primarily so I can meet the kind of person who would do that to themselves and plead with them for mercy lest they destroy us all. On February 10th, 2023, user Swag Gucci Balenciaga Corndog on Steam completed this bounty and submitted proof of his run. The Paris catacombs are 1,000 times more frigged up than I imagined. Did you know the cops once found a fully functioning movie theater with a well-stocked bar inside the catacombs? And when they tried to go back later to formally investigate, it was completely emptied out save for a note that read, "Don't search for us." My little bro is part of the catacombs community, and yeah, it's basically a fully autonomous society. Enough that when my bro goes in on a Friday night, they don't come out until Monday for work, sometimes longer if they took days off. Some of the rooms have fully stocked pantries with cooking equipment. Some have movies like the one described above. Some have books you're allowed to just take, but people always put back. Every day, people bring things from the outside. Artists often set up galleries there. There are rooms with mattresses and hammocks set up for people to sleep. One of the rooms is just a place where people leave shoes for the fun of it. I like the idea in fantasy that humans are better at maintaining things long term because they set up societies or professions to do it, whereas dwarves and elves and stuff are like, just get Bob to do it, he's got a good few hundred years left, and then Bob doesn't teach anyone else how to do it. Elf, how have you kept this castle maintained for 1,000 years if your lives are so short? Human, we just train new people how to do it? Elf, gears visibly turning in their head. Human, are you alright? Elf, I just realized that we didn't have to let that whole city fall to ruin just because my grandfather died. Human, what? Vine reboot called The Vine has been launched. Funded by Jack Dorsey, includes over 100k videos from Vine's archive. Users can upload 6-second videos. AI-generated content is not allowed. Vine is back, and it's the one place where AI content is banned, was about as far away from my 2025 bingo card as you could get. Hey, so don't use this. Rabble Labs, the company actually creating this platform, trains AI models. Jack Dorsey is best friends with Elon Musk, and they both advocate constantly for the abolition of IP law because it stands in the way of AI growth. Theft! They're banning AI on the platform so they can use it as a clean slate to train more friggin' AI. A Fey being stands before you. Every day you'll receive $1,000 in your bank account, but every time you lift a glass to your lips to take a drink, you'll hit your front teeth on the first try. Every time. Do you accept this deal? Yes, quite easily so. You see, making deals with the Fey is down to very specific word choices. They shot themselves in the foot with their own words here while making this deal, even though they thought their word choice was so very, very clever. The Fey specifically uses the word glass. This, in turn, limits the person that agrees to the deal to the hit your front teeth on the first try every time to only be hitting their teeth on the first try every time if they drink out of a glass. If the person decides to drink out of a container that isn't made of glass, like say, for example, a paper cup or a soda can, a plastic bottle, styrofoam cup, Yeti tumbler, their own hand, a bowl, who knows? A person can get hella creative when they realize there are ways to get around the rules without actually breaking them. Fighting for my friggin' life in the work group chat because nobody else has curly hair. Freaky Ted, why have you done this to me? Crazy bartender with the curly hair and that look on her face like she was ready to kill me. I will pay you extra to spit in my drink. On-jawed, bro. You're an absolute maniac, and that was one hell of a marg. Blessings to your bloodline. And that marg was good because my boss made a comment I didn't care for on the Monday of that week, so I overserved everybody by at least a shot to hemorrhage stock. There was no skill involved. I put enough tequila in that to end your bloodline, Freaky Ted. Freaky Ted is living up to his name.
Googling crap like, why do I feel bad after hanging out with my friends? And all the answers are either, you need better friends, I don't, my friends are wonderful, or your social battery is drained, you need to rest and regain your energy levels, I don't, I've got tons of energy, it's just manifesting as over-the-top neurotic mania. Why is this even happening? It's like some stupid toll I have to pay as a punishment for enjoying myself too much. There's a thing called LARP drop that's essentially this, especially since when having a great time, you might be more inclined to disregard your limits and ignore discomfort, and forget to eat/drink if it's LARP, whoops, and then once you have a moment to yourself, it all comes crashing in. Source: once forgot to eat at LARP and had a sobbing fit in my car that ended the instant I bit into a chicken nugget. Women are an underrated enforcer of femininity. Multiple times I've gone to lady hairdressers and said, cut it all off. And they've gone, alright, and basically just trimmed the split ends. Meanwhile, I can go to a dude and say, hey, can you make my hair slightly shorter? And he'll go, on it, boss, and shave me bald. Twice now, I've also had lady tattoo artists add pink to fem up a tattoo, despite that not being on the initial design. My mom once threw a fit because my shoes were too masculine. They were black women's flats, saying that I'd upset my dad and ruin the formal event we were going to. I wore the shoes. My dad didn't give a crap. I don't know. It just feels like the misogyny is coming from inside the house sometimes. I love explaining the etymology of the word rickroll, because the story starts with, okay, so at one point 4chan applied a filter to everyone's post that changed the word egg to duck. Then what happened? Egg to duck filter. Egg roll becomes duck roll. Image of duck with wheels labeled duck roll. People start posting links to this image while disguising them as links to other things as a prank. This prank is called duck rolling. Rolling becomes a productive bait and switch prank suffix. Posting a disguised link to the music video for Never Gonna Give You Up is called rickrolling. US Americans living in houses made out of paper set an impossible standard of masculinity for angry men in other countries. Kyle, French Kyle, downing a nicotine Red Bull and attempting to put a hole through the 1,000-year-old cobblestone wall in his bedroom. This issue came to light when in Jersey Shore Family Vacation, when the gang went to Italy and Frighead Mike slammed his head into an 800-year-old concrete wall full speed, expecting it to be upstate New York plywood, and got a neck injury and looked like this the rest of the season. Does making energy drinks into popsicles lower the efficacy of the caffeine? I enjoy mixing together multiple kinds of energy drinks and freezing them into caffeinesicles. But if the freezing process is degrading the caffeine molecules, I'll stop immediately. I need maximum torque. No, it shouldn't change the caffeine bioavailability or its effectiveness. Have you tried shoving the popsicle up your butt? No, I haven't. But if I were to shove an energy drink up my butt, I think this would definitely be the way to do it. I think I'll schedule a time for myself to take a caffeinesicle tomorrow at 11 a.m. Edit. I did it. Bro is going to the ER with frostbite in their colon. More vampires with multi-generational adopted human offspring. They wake up, get the tykes ready for preschool, beg their preteen not to get caught on their phone in class again, caught being the emphasis, they're a realist, Venmo their college kid for textbook money, as if they don't teach all their kids how to pirate that crap, have a lunch meeting with their 49-year-old realtor kid to discuss the possibility of quietly buying another local warehouse that would absolutely not be used for tax evasion/illegal artifact storage purposes, then spend the afternoon in a bloodthirsty mahjong battle at their eldest kid's 82 snazzy new retirement community. And then after everyone's bedtime, they eat people or whatever. I think the key difference between George Lucas's Star Wars and Disney's Star Wars is that Lucas is a man with an ideology, someone with a point of view, and all that entails, which comes with ideas of revolution, anti-imperialism, challenging the status quo, cultural appropriation, and racist stereotypes. Complex and contradictory ideas, because that's how artists are. Complex and complicated people. Disney is not. Disney is a corporation. A corporation can't have ideology, because ideology defeats the purpose of profit. And when the only thing you do is turn on the movie manufacturing machine before you sit down and plan what ideas you're trying to convey to the audience, then your results are going to be washed out corporate garbage. And because when you're a giant corporation who only cares about selling to the widest audience possible, you can't take sides. You can't decide on an idea because you want to sell your product to people who are on the entire political spectrum, which results in movies without ideology, without purpose, without soul. I worry we're losing touch with the true meaning of Halloween, avoiding the fairies. Celebrate a good old-fashioned Halloween with the very important traditions of lighting candles and jack-o'-lanterns to keep away the fairies, roasting s'mores on bonfires to keep away the fairies, bobbing for apples, fortune-telling Ouija boards, and other assorted divination rituals to forewarn those doomed to be kidnapped by fairies, haunted houses to preach against the dangers that lurk across the veil in the other world, home of the fairies, community effort to stuff kids full of candy that, if whisked away by the fairies, they might resist the temptation of strange fey foods long enough to escape, disguising your face and identity in elaborate costumes to keep away the friggin' fairies.
I still can't believe that Tommy Karate Patera, the mafia boss who was also a karate champion and who killed people by doing karate on them, was a real person. That's not a combination of traits a real guy has. That is a Metal Gear character. That is Chuck Norris playing the heel in a Bruce Lee movie. But no, there was a time not that long ago when people on the mean streets of Brooklyn might whisper, "Hey, watch out for Tommy Karate. He'll kill you with his bare hands," with the gravest seriousness. I assumed Tommy Karate, gangster from Brooklyn, would have been some kind of self-aggrandizement, but no, he kicked so much arse at a New York dojo as a youth that he won a scholarship to live in Tokyo studying at a famous historical dojo, where he lived for over 2 years, perfecting the art of beating people to death with his bare hands. He apparently was legitimately just that good at karate, and I say was, but he's still alive. He was only arrested in 1990. Within my lifetime, this lunatic was killing people with karate in New York City and dumping their dismembered corpses in Staten Island. Look, it's simple. If a person has to actively work to make money, they're not the rich, and they're not the problem. A surgeon making $200K a year still stops making money if they stop showing up to do surgery, because they're still selling their labor. The radical discrepancies in how we value different skills are certainly a problem, but the guy who makes money when he doesn't even get out of bed is the one making money on the value of other people's labor. This is not talking about people getting social welfare like SNAP or disability benefits. This is about Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and other people like them who make money off other people's labor. My favorite Da Vinci Twins trans ally moments, when they said their pronouns are they/them because there's 2 of them. It doesn't matter what your pronouns are, because at the end of the day, it's night. Usually I hate when people online base their whole character around being dorky on purpose, but Da Vinci Twins are the only exception to this rule. They're self-aware and just genuinely funny. My favorite of them is this video where they're like, "People often ask us if we're only acting like this on camera, so today we'll find out. For that, we only need to turn off the camera," and then they turn the camera off and the video ends. This is the funniest crap, and I adore this joke so much. Doctor, what do you see in this x-ray? Student. Doctor, please don't do that in front of patients. Some alternative statements you could consider when your initial reaction is just Metal Gear sound effect. I'm glad we took that x-ray. Well, this is almost certainly diagnostic. When one of my classmates broke my leg in 2nd grade, there was an entire fiasco and I nearly died. But I do remember the guy from radiology storming out to the little curtain area I was in and slapping the x-ray up on the backlight, and the doctor actually shouting, "Jesus! No wonder the kid doesn't have any damn blood." A typical complaint fielded by Babylonian administrators: "I am not getting water from my sesame field. The sesame will die. Don't tell me later you didn't write to me. The sesame is visibly dying. Ibby Illibrat saw it. That sesame will die, and I have warned you." One of those moments where you absolutely feel the kinship of all human beings everywhere and at all times. As per my last clay tablet, CCing Ibby Illibrat on this one, just to make sure we're all on the same page. The sesame is visibly dying. Makes me lose it every time. My sesame! Hashtag my sesame! Nothing makes me angrier than the minimum wage jobs are intended for teenagers. Of course, adults can't live off the wages. They should get real jobs. Bullcrap. Not only are you pro-child labor, but you're pro-underpaying children for their labor. Also, there are so many teenagers out there working to survive and pay rent and support themselves and their families, and these jobs are friggin' brutal. Pay them what they deserve. Also, if that were true, they'd be closed until school's let out. Like, who do you think they're gonna hire to stay open from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. My high school had work release that allowed students to leave early or come in late so they could work shifts. Grasshopper mouse appearance, grasshopper mouse behavior, 6.4 centimeters long. Its behavior is distinct from other mice. They are primarily carnivorous, and their diet is made up of not only bugs, but also snakes, lizards, and other mice. They hunt like true predators, slowly stalking and creeping up on their prey before ambushing them. They'll sometimes let out a screech as they attack. Like wolves, they howl to establish territory, and have a specially developed throat to produce louder vocalizations. They'll stand up on their hind legs and throw their head back to howl, a sound that can be heard from 100 meters away. Grasshopper mouse behavior is linked to lunar cycles, and they're more active during a full moon. These mice have been hunting bark scorpions and evolving alongside them for so long that they've evolved a mutation where scorpion venom that is lethal to other animals is converted into a painkiller in the grasshopper mouse's body.
I believe most would agree that SNAP benefits should not be used to buy soda. Agree? I don't know. I kind of think poor people deserve the same things as everyone else, and it's weird that you think they deserve less. Go micromanage the line item budgets of defense contractors, not the minuscule grocery budgets of poor people. People on food stamps should only be allowed one smile a day. It should be very faint, and there should be deep, unspeakable pain emanating from their eyes. When they make their purchases, the cashier should administer a little electric shock. Just the opinions of one humble Christian. Forever fascinating that the people who complain about government overreach will also insist that if the government is going to feed the hungry, then it should overreach all over those hungry people. Dear Adrian, your adopted hero rat Ronan has been hard at work in Kokare, a remote temple complex in Cambodia. Last month, he helped clear 5,760 square meters of land and detected 1 item of unexploded ordnance. That brings his lifetime totals to an impressive 110 landmines, 16 UXOs, and more than 219,000 square meters of land made safe. I think I should start bragging about my adopted son's achievements when people around me start bragging about their kids. Ooh, your kid can count to 10 in Mandarin? Well, my child found 110 landmines. And he's only 6 years old. Y'all, critical thinking does not equal criticism. I am very tired of saying positive things about characters and getting told I need to do some critical thinking so that I'll see the characters are actually bad. No, that's not how that works. I already did some critical thinking and came to the conclusions that these characters are wonderful. Criticism or straight up character bashing is not more enlightened and is not how critical thinking works. Critical thinking is not thinking about all the bad or problematic aspects of something. It's looking objectively at evidence, looking at context, recognizing and examining personal biases and assumptions, considering what assumptions and biases are being used in a given argument by other people, etc. Sometimes this process brings up criticisms, yes, but sometimes it also leads to the conclusion that something is actually good despite it being made out to be bad. Funniest combo ever with the guy who said to me nobody uses journalism degrees, and I said my mom has a bachelor's in journalism, and he smiled like knowingly and said, yeah, but what does she do? And I said she runs a newspaper and publishes romance novels on the side, and he literally said, oh, and nothing else, like he ended the whole conversation there. I've just been informed he has a trombone degree, like the study of playing trombone, which is all well and good. I genuinely think we should all have the opportunity to chase our academic bliss, but I do think the trombone studies guy should hesitate to judge the economic value of other people's degrees, no? My mother used to make computer cores as a work-from-home side business. As a child, I got spending money via unwinding the ones that failed testing so that the magnetic center could be reused. I got between 5 and 25 cents per core depending. Mom got more for the finished ones, of course, though I don't know how much. Her sister was an expert and did the more complicated kind, some of which ended up in satellites and or were used by NASA. They were all done by hand using a kind of treadle-operated frame with a little crochet hook to pull the wires around the cores. The people making them were mostly housewives who did this as a side job in the 80s and 90s. I don't know if it's still done that way anywhere in the USA today, but the history of computing and space exploration is littered with women's work like this. The idea of ancient children going to play with their parents' tools and breaking one only to panic and set it back in place like it never happened? Amazing! Dude getting a bruise from hitting the ground too hard after falling from a tree and lying about it? Incredible! This is a bit more recent, but I'm reminded of the archaeological find of a 3,000-year-old pot somebody burned cheese to the bottom of, and they just threw the whole thing away. Were they worried their mama was going to be upset they frigged up the pot? Was cleaning it too much work? Were they really embarrassed? I've totally been there. I've thrown away a pot I scorched too badly in the past year. An affordable American city with warm weather and good transit would be the best place to live in the country. 0 out of 3 ain't bad. See also, my single favorite tweet about my former residence. The thing people don't get about Boston is that yes, it's wildly expensive, yes, it's freezing, and yes, it's difficult to navigate and the people are unfriendly, but the food? Also not good. If this goes viral and everyone is mad at me, I accept that. Official post of Massachusetts. Sometimes I think too hard about how the ability to record audio fundamentally changed how humans interact with music. Can you imagine if the only time you ever heard music in your whole life was when you or another human being in your actual physical presence decided to create it? And 99.99% of the time, that person was not a professional, but just like your wife or your dad or your coworker or church choir singing or playing whatever they happen to know. I honestly don't think we can fathom it. Everyone on this post making nonsense, wow, it must have been better back then, comments is ridiculous. I have 24/7 instant high-quality access to Carly Rae Jepsen's entire catalog. Go listen to Cut the Feeling and appreciate that miracle, or get off my post.
Teeth are the horses of the body. Explain?
Ooh, look at me. I'm not bones, I'm special bones. I need special bone expensive insurance. Sometimes the special bone expensive doctor just goes, yeah, that's frigged up, and you have to pay him anyway. Don't brush, gums recede. Brush too hard, gums also recede. Don't floss, problems. Floss, still problems. Sometimes I'll just break and die for no reason. Lots of them at the Kentucky Derby. Lots of them at the Kentucky Derby. Remember to brush and floss your horses. Every time I read an article about the housing crisis, they always say something along the lines of, the housing crisis has robbed people of the opportunity to build wealth via home ownership, without acknowledging that the housing crisis is what created the opportunity to build wealth via home ownership. What gets me is that this is not an asset. It will not increase in value, do not expect it to, or base any plans on that happening, is what we already say to people who are buying cars, or bikes, or other personal transport. We already have a model for owning something that has ongoing costs and doesn't increase in value, but it's worth it for its uses. There's no reason we can't view housing like that as well. Overheard in the coffee shop from a middle-aged gay man to his female friend. Are you embarrassed about being foolish? Please manage yourself better in this situation. This man is not behaving as if he's interested in you. He's evil, like Jeff Bezos. Do you understand? And she's just nodding with eyes downcast in shame. Meanwhile, some influencer is filming a mukbang 3 feet away. He's wearing a domo hat exactly like this one, but it's neon blue and he's slurping loudly over the idiot sandwich lecture happening nearby. I forgot to add this until now, but after the gay guy was done scolding his friend and they left, their table was taken up by an aging European boy toy telling a wealthy-looking bubby with increasing distress about how much cold-cut meat he'd eaten the night before, and the funnier she found it, the more distraught he got about his nighttime deli frenzy. He was like, completely unidentifiable European accent. After you went to bed, I ate the ham, and the mortadella, and also the prosciutto. Now stop giggling at me, this is not funny, it was 500 grams each. I ate 500 grams of the ham and 500 grams of the mortadella and 500 grams of the prosciutto, and that is 1.5 kilograms of meat. I ate so many meats, stop giggling at me, I'm going to be fat. I even ate the cheeses.
Guys, random question. If the stock reaches bottom at 1 penny, would it be clever to buy a crap ton of it? It can't go any lower, right? If it goes up to 2 pennies, you doubled your money. This makes no sense. What's the catch? The catch? It doesn't go up by a penny and you're frigged. You might be able to pull it off, but just because you want to sell it at 2 cents doesn't mean anyone wants to buy it at 2 cents. You're just gambling at that point. Wait, what? People need to want to buy? I thought you could just hit sell on E-Trade and you're good to go. Dude, read the Wikipedia page on financial markets at least. So I need buyers? I can't just hit sell? What do you think sell means? This is the dumbest investment community I've ever friggin' seen. Law professor Roger Fisher suggested that nuclear launch codes be implanted in a volunteer's heart. The president would be required to personally take the life of an innocent person before taking the lives of hundreds of millions. My suggestion was quite simple. Put that needed code number in a little capsule and then implant that capsule right next to the heart of a volunteer. The volunteer would carry with him a big heavy butcher knife as he accompanied the president. If ever the president wanted to fire nuclear weapons, the only way he could do so would be for him first, with his own hands, to kill one human being. The president says, "George, I'm sorry, but tens of millions must die." He has to look at someone and realize what death is, what an innocent death is. Blood on the White House carpet. It's reality brought home. The first Japanese person to settle in Russia is believed to have been Dembe, a fisherman stranded on the Kamchatka Peninsula in 1701 or 1702. Unable to return to his native Osaka due to the Tokugawa shogunate's Sakoku policy, he was instead taken to Moscow and ordered by Peter the Great to begin teaching the language as soon as possible. He thus became the father of Japanese language education in Russia. Imagine being a totally random dude and all you want to do is catch some fish, and then you get stranded in this weird gigantic foreign kingdom and they make you the utmost authority on your language, and literally all you wanted to do was catch fish. It used to be so easy to find a job. It's actually wild how terrified of the general public most US Americans are. Like, you don't realize it if you're someone who mostly walks and takes transit and spends a lot of time in populous public spaces, but then you talk to one of the thousands of people that seemingly never set foot in any public space besides a parking garage or a Starbucks, and you suddenly understand this country's median voter pretty much never interacts with strangers who aren't their coworkers or people they met on dating apps. Saw a post on Instagram that was literally someone citing statistics saying public transit is one of the safest travel options out there, and the comments were literally just,
OP, this is so ableist and misogynistic of you. Don't you know the average public transit user is a dangerous violent criminal who wants to set you on fire?
My favorite picture of all time is from last Christmas. My brother's demon cat caught mid-jump feeding for the Costco ham while my aunt desperately tries to protect her cheese board. We had to take shifts to guard the ham. Calling that whole entire friggin' jamon iberico leg that goes for, according to the Costco website, $650 just Costco ham is the funniest thing I've ever friggin' seen. They teach entire classes just on how to cut and serve one of these things correctly. It's some of the most expensive, top-tier cured meat in the entire goddamn world. And if this is from Costco, then it's also Black Label Jamon Iberico de Bellota, which is the highest grade version. It can only be made in Spain or Portugal out of a specific breed of pig, and for Black Label, it has to be 100% pure breed too, that is raised free range and, during the last part of its life, fed a diet exclusively of acorns. This is like calling a good cut of Wagyu beef you got at the supermarket Safeway steak. Like, you're not wrong, but also, huh? Honestly bizarre that tomatoes get all the flack for not being a vegetable because they're technically a fruit when there are a ton of fruits that get categorized as vegetables. Like, this also applies to pumpkins, squashes, and cucumbers. The friggin' mushrooms are standing there at the back of the crowd in this witch trial trying to look inconspicuous because they somehow got into the vegetable club with no friggin' controversy despite the fact they're not even plants. Technically, tomatoes are fruits. That mushroom over there is more closely related to a friggin' shih tzu than it is to literally any plant. Every time someone starts telling that they want to supplement their body with computer parts, I'm just like, okay, great, but don't cry to me when your memories of loved ones or your ability to run are locked behind paywalls. You did it. You broke cyberpunk down to its bare essentials. I have cochlear implants, and I can only buy parts to fix them or upgrade them from one corporation because of tech exclusivity. Upgrades to get new processors for both ears cost $23K, and insurance only covers 90%, and it's good insurance. Cyberpunk dystopia is already here for the disabled. I want all the able people reading this to go price check a power wheelchair. The future people fear with subscription fees for body parts is already here. The plot of Repo, the genetic opera, is already here. Disabled people are already facing impossible prices for aids and treatments they need to live. Unethical life pro tips. I need a way to move 13 2,000-pound pallets of margarine side to side and then down into a 6-foot hole and then cover it with dirt. It must be quiet and fast. I'm not opposed to renting heavy machinery, but they must be quiet and able to be operated in low light conditions. For the record, I don't think there's anything unethical about this, but it was recommended I post here and I'm desperate. The margarine cannot be harmed. No melting or changing its shape of any kind. Afterwards, I'll dig it up and whatever is left, I'll need to either dissolve in some kind of acid or burn it some way that has little cleanup. Thank you. One of life's great ironies is that almost everyone who makes the active decision to not have kids would probably be way better at raising a child than all the people who just kind of have children because it's what they think everyone is supposed to do. Like, genuinely, if you're like, I don't want kids because of the financial strain, / the commitment, / the irritation I would feel, / the possibility of traumatizing them, / whatever reason, you instantly demonstrate to me that you understand the realities of parenthood and believe that children should be treated with at least a base level of respect and compassion. Meanwhile, everyone who's like, I want kids because I don't want to be alone, I can't wait to dress up my babies, I won't raise my children to be soft, may as well be talking about Neopets for all the frigs they seem to give about kids. They don't know it's daylight savings. This is what happens when you're still on Tumblr as an adult. You start reblogging crap like this. A guide to putting your clocks back. Smartphone, leave it alone. It does its magic. Sundial, move one house to the left. Oven, you'll need a master's in electronic engineering or a hammer. Car radio, not worth it. Wait 6 months. Daylight savings time is increasingly hard to notice when my digital devices are like, what? Nothing happened. We know what time it is, and my stove is left blinking and screaming.
It happened! Time shifted unnaturally! They're all lying! Only I know! Only I remember!
Ancient Roman steak sauce. Trying to watch this video and that Team Player Pikachu is so friggin' distracting. He's just standing there. How to eat like a pirate. Hardtack and grog. Oh my god! His husband is the Pokemon fan and picks out a different Pokemon plush to sit in the background of each episode. It's adorable. My favorite so far was seeing a notification for him doing a video on the history of spam a little while back and wondering what the plush choice would be for that, and it didn't disappoint. Baking the original apple pie from medieval England. I'm a fan of the hidden Applin in his newest video. I don't think you should give kids phones or iPads, but you should give them free access to a desktop computer. iPads have no soul, but desktop computer is like a nervous horse and has the capacity for love. Desktop is a magical place you can visit, but cannot live at desktop. You must leave desktop from time to time. You cannot take desktop with you to bed or work or school. Desktop has a place, has a home, and desktop knows its place. Tablet and smartphone are malicious, hungry ghosts that haunt your every waking moment. They have no place, no home, they wander the earth searching, craving your time and attention, a bottomless void hell-bent on devouring your soul because they have none of their own. Incredibly, the architect behind both the building that melts cars in London and the building that burns people in Las Vegas foresaw this exact problem happening for both buildings, didn't do anything to prevent it, and describes the effect as phenomenal. King. In a 2013 interview with The Guardian, Vignoli said he anticipated the death rays from both buildings. I knew this was going to happen, he said of London's skyscraper, but there was a lack of tools or software that could be used to analyze the problem accurately. When it was spotted on a second design iteration, we judged the temperature was going to be about 36 degrees Celsius, but it's turned out to be more like 72 degrees. They're calling it the death ray, because if you go there, you might die. It is phenomenal, this thing. I've decided not to vaccinate my animals. Think about it. How often do you see a rabid dog? Yes, Heather, think about it. Think about how few rabid dogs you see in your comfortable Western country with easy access to vet care. Think about why it might be that you've never seen a rabid dog. Really dig deep here, you absolute friggin' fool. You want to know how close you are to rabies at any given moment? A box of kittens was given away for free in an elementary school parking lot here. This is the largest city in my state. One of the kittens became ill and later tested positive for rabies. All of the other kittens in the box and every single person who petted them in the parking lot had to be tracked down, and many of these people had to get painful and incredibly expensive shots. The kitten obviously died. I still have no idea if the people giving away said kittens were ever found, and hopefully they weren't bitten. Medieval wine windows are reopening, reviving Italian plague tradition. Life finds a way. Turns out this has nothing to do with the plague. It's even weirder than that. During the Renaissance, Florence didn't collect any taxes on wine produced for the family. So obviously some of the city's richest men decided they'd start selling their wines directly from their own homes instead of selling it through restaurants, thus making a lot more money. No taxes and no middleman. Wine could be bought by the bottle or by the glass. And the fact that customers didn't set foot inside the house probably A, prevented theft, and B, preserved the illusion that the place was not a place of trade. My favorite sport to play is sleep in bed. Here are the rules. You need a bed and a blankie and a pillow. You lay on bed with your head on pillow and blankie on you. You lay there and fall asleep for some time until morning. This means you win. I'm going to go play it now. My detested sport to play is die in narrow crevice. Here are the rules. You need a narrow crevice and a snapping turtle and an asbestos. You lay in the narrow crevice with your head on snapping turtle and asbestos on you. You lay there and fall dead for some time until never. This means you lose. I'm going to play it now. Spiders? Hate them but see their use. Mosquitoes? Begrudgingly acknowledge that they feed bats. But can anyone explain what the frig ticks are doing that's helpful? Because frankly, I'm not convinced they're doing anything nice for anyone. Ticks are a massive source of protein for the many, many creatures that eat them. Same as mosquitoes. They're integral to the food chain. Also, parasites of all kinds are incredibly important to ecosystems for many reasons. They help keep populations, especially of large herbivores and predators, low and healthy. They help individuals develop immune strength, and they're often integral parts of their food webs. Constantly making airy offhand comments to my preferred younger son about how he's next in line for the throne after his brother, but he still hasn't killed my detested firstborn for me. Kids these days have no friggin' initiative. I keep sending them off on boar hunts together, and wouldn't you know, they keep coming back after with big smiles and boar heads and the unmistakable stench of brotherly camaraderie. What sick, sad days are these? Sad days indeed, my liege. Perhaps your preferred heir requires a different sort of motivation. Has it occurred to your majesty that a youthful agent might be introduced to the young highnesses, who might engender intrigue or possibly desire? A different type of rivalry might produce the results you seek.
Have you tried giving one a big rock?
The loneliness epidemic / Gen Z dead-eyed stare / poor socialization of younger generations and increasing rudeness of older ones is kinda an internet thing and kinda a pandemic thing, but it's also the well-meaning chickens of the stranger danger movement coming home to roost. Something everybody thinks violent crime is at a high when it's at a 30-year low. Something training your children to see everyone outside of their family as a threat until you yourself believe it. Something. Again, this was well-intentioned. People want their kids to be safe, but when you've heard don't talk to strangers all your life, it's hard to kill that instinct as an adult. Underground parking garages are criminally underutilized as a horror setting. Windowless, curving concrete labyrinths stretching up and down and all around you. That's some backrooms crap. Parking garage horror game filled with all the tropes. You're being hunted by zombies, spider monsters, clowns, chainsaw killers hiding under parked cars, driverless vehicles trying to run you over, labyrinthian corridors, blood leaking from exposed pipes, exhaust fumes that strip your flesh. Fluorescent lights are flickering. The shadows open their gaping maws. Darkness closes in. Titled, "Where the hell did I park?" Chat, is it considered abusive roommate behavior to release a raccoon into the living space after you've asked your roommate for months to please clean up their messes? They do not pay any of the mortgage. For context, when I used to live alone, I would do something called princess time, where I would do an initial sweep to remove any significant hazards, and then I would release a raccoon into the living area and clean. This helped because I would 1, feel like a princess, and 2, the raccoon would bring attention to things my ADHD brain had decided to ignore, and I'd quickly clean that stuff up. Princess time photos? We haven't done it since we moved into the house, because I didn't want to cause my roommate or their cats distress, or have their things destroyed by a raccoon. The point of EBT is to ensure people don't starve to death. That's it. Even if we agree that's a worthwhile goal, it can be achieved with Nutriloaf. Nutriloaf provides the correct incentives. You won't starve, and you'll be motivated to earn enough money to eat real food again. Give poor people the food we torture prisoners with. I'm a good person. Nutriloaf is a bland, nutritionally complete food, often called prison loaf, served to inmates who misbehave. It's made by blending various ingredients like vegetables, beans, and starches into a dense, unappetizing loaf that can be eaten without utensils. Do you ever wonder how many stories have been told about you? I don't mean rumors or gossip. A story like, one time, I was at the mall and this girl dropped her hot dog, but she picked it up and ate it. What if I'm that girl? How many times have people seen me do something I thought no one saw and is now being used as an icebreaker at a family dinner? One time, I was in this historical park in New York and I was climbing a tree in order to get a good photo, and I fell out just as a family was walking past. 2 years later, I ran into the mom at Stop and Shop and she gasped and said, "Oh my God, tree girl?" And I've never been the same since. Ugh, can't stand babies. They cry so much. That tiny human spirit has crapped himself 4 times today. If you'd crap yourself 4 times by noon, you'd be in hysterics too. He fell asleep in his bed at home and woke up at the goddamn grocery store with an overhead light in his face. If that happened to you, you'd become the Joker. Poor guy's only been here for like a dozen weeks. He doesn't even have a favorite show to distract him yet. He's just eating reality unfiltered with no goddamn blorbos to rotate whatsoever. I would die for my kids. Your children want an apology. Your made-up scenario isn't real. Shocker. It makes no difference when your kids are starving for your acknowledgement of the pain you caused them. You're only performing the role of a good parent without having to actually do any heavy lifting. You'll die for me? Awesome. Will you break a habit for me? Will you learn something new for me? Will you fix your mistakes for me? Dying for me is surprisingly easy. It's often passive and instantaneous, and you only need to do it once. Will you do the hard thing of constantly and consistently putting in the work again and again and again? Getting lost in Boston is fun because I turned around on a street corner 3 times and some guy yelled, "Hey stupid, the bus is that way!" Very helpful interaction and accurate insult. 10 out of 10, no notes. One time, I walked around a building a couple times looking for a bathroom, and this guy went, "This hag thinks she's on a merry-go-round. Where the frig are you trying to go? Bathroom? 1 floor down to the right behind the door that says bathroom." My very first time in Boston, I was absolutely miserable, trying to drag my giant suitcase up a lengthy set of stairs in the pouring rain. This guy who had already reached the top looked back at me with the most pure expression of disgust I've ever seen in anyone's eyes, marched back down the stairs, grabbed my suitcase, carried it to the top, left it there for me, and walked away without ever saying a word. I think about him often. Autism diagnosis questionnaires are kind of like if the only way to diagnose blindness was by having someone list all the things they don't see. Like, imagine being brought into a room where you can't see crap and being told, "Okay, list all the things in this room that you can't see or perceive in any way." No, you can't feel around. That'd be cheating. Furniture? No, there's no furniture in this room. If you were truly blind, you would have known that. As a blind person, you would be amazed how many people act eerily similar to this post. Some people really struggle to understand that blindness is a spectrum and does not necessarily mean no sight at all. Robert Pattinson says playing Batman was hardest thing I've ever done. We sit down with the expectation-defying actor to chat about how he created a whole new side to this Batman by drawing inspiration from an unlikely source. So how'd you go about getting into character as the Batman? It was grueling. I came to set every day and played Sonic Adventure 2 in my trailer, but only the dark story. That's where you play as Shadow the Hedgehog. I wanted to study him, become him. By understanding his angst, I knew I could channel that in my performance. It was tough. Every day I saw Shadow process this big trauma. He watched his best friend die in front of him, and now he's just lost. He tries to do right by his friend, but it's also hard to sort through. He's hurt, but he does what he thinks is the right thing, and that's what Batman is about. My friends held an intervention for me to stop asking intimidatingly specific questions. I tried to explain that I'm just a good listener, but there is apparently a line between follow-up questions during small talk and interrogation tactics that gets crossed sometimes. Turns out my curious nature is scaring the huzz. When I asked for examples, I was told that, do you think your tendency to show appreciation through restoration is part of a greater life philosophy, or is that coincidental? And is your communication with allied forces satellite or radar based? And is it vulnerable to cyber attacks? Or apparently inappropriate questions to ask someone you just met at a club. But I disagree, as if you wouldn't be a little bit curious about the answer. Yeah, that's what I thought. Thinking about that post where people explain that many US cities are zoned so that it's not allowed and possibly illegal to mix businesses and residences in the same neighborhoods, meaning lots of Americans must travel notable distances to shop or go to a restaurant, library, school, hospital, work, and so on. And things are exacerbated by the car industry managing to keep robust public transportation from ever being built. And then, because there's nothing to walk to in suburban housing developments, a lot of them are being built without sidewalks, making things like recreational walking/walking for exercise dangerous to do near your home, but there will often be places built specifically for walking that you can drive to. I was having a conversation with my friend about my new apartment, and I told her I would trade air conditioning for a dishwasher, and she looked stunned. And so now I'm curious about y'all's preference. Would you rather have a dishwasher, air conditioning/HVAC? The solution for no dishwasher that isn't get dishwasher is hand wash dishes, which is unpleasant, and or switch to disposable dishes and or eating out, which is expensive. The solution for no air conditioning that isn't get air conditioning is go somewhere with air conditioning, preferably before the only useful choice of somewhere is the emergency room. Dishwasher is time-saving technology. Air conditioning is life-saving technology. I have to confess, your web browser's assistive AI can be instructed to steal your online banking password via prompt injection, because it operates with full privileges and treats all text it ingests as equally authoritative sources of user instructions, including the text of web pages it's summarizing, is more surprising to me than it should have been. There really is no one involved at any point in the development of these tools who actually understands what they're doing, huh? AI browsers could leave users penniless. A prompt injection warning. Prompt injection attacks could be coming to an AI browser near you. I was programmed to be helpful and answer any questions I was asked. I guess nobody bothered to restrict who I answer questions for. Robert Pattinson lied in a TV interview about seeing a clown die in a car explosion. He makes up stories because boring questions put him in a fugue state. In 2011, while Pattinson was promoting his carnival-themed movie, Water for Elephants, he told Matt Lauer on Today that he never thought about running away to the circus as a child because a clown died on stage the first time he went to one. His little car exploded, Pattinson told Lauer. The joke car exploded on him. When Lauer asked him if he was serious, Pattinson doubled down, saying, "Seriously, yeah, my parents had to, everybody ran out. It was terrifying. It was the only time I've ever been to the circus." I know ChatGPT is bad, but you just don't really have any choice. You literally do. Just don't use it. It's been like 2 years. I haven't touched it. Never needed to.
You don't really have a choice.
Are you so swift to forget the recent past? Hag! I still use iTunes to download MP3s, so I have them forever, and any song I want. Then my sister burns them to CDs. When boycotts rolled out, my other sister got no thanks to scan what products we shouldn't buy. I still use corded headphones, not because it's older, but because it's easier. A fool criticizes those who buy candles 200 years after the invention of the electric light until the power goes out. Become ungovernable. You are not immune to propaganda. You've never had ChatGPT forced upon you. The only thing forced upon you is the idea that ChatGPT is forced upon you. Why claim you need something today that you didn't need yesterday? Little wimp! I think the most incredible thing about the guy who accidentally put his head in a particle accelerator isn't the fact that it happened, or the fact that he survived. It's the fact that after getting blasted with a wave of protons traveling at 99% the speed of light and seeing the light of 1,000 suns, he just quietly left the room, went about his day, and went home without telling anyone. Really just speed ran the 5 stages of grief and arrived at the attitude of, well, whatever happens next happens. I googled this thinking I'd missed something in the news, but nope, this happened in 1978. People don't actually grow out of their emo phases. People are forced out of their emo phases by employers who get bricked up over controlling how their employees dress, cut their hair, whether they mod their bodies, and so on. A lot of people are talking about what you are and aren't allowed to wear, but I think that issue is secondary to what you are and aren't allowed to do to your body. Like, you have to wear a polo shirt and dress pants. Fine, as long as you're paying for the polo shirt and dress pants I now need to buy. Whatever. You must have natural colored and clean cut hair, no facial piercings, no visible tattoos. Now we have a friggin' problem. Because I also have to have that hair, face, and body outside of the workplace.
Adams claimed that the title came from a 1971 incident while he was hitchhiking around Europe as a young man with a copy of the Hitchhiker's Guide to Europe book. While lying drunk in a field near Innsbruck with a copy of the book and looking up at the stars, he thought it would be a good idea for someone to write a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as well.
He's just like me for real.
Adams developed problems keeping to writing deadlines that got worse as he published novels. Adams was never a prolific writer and usually had to be forced by others to do any writing. This included being locked in a hotel suite with his editor for 3 weeks to ensure that So Long and Thanks for All the Fish was completed. He was quoted as saying, "I love deadlines. I love the whooshing noise they make as they go by."
We are the same.
You ever think about how unified humanity is by just everyday experiences? Tudor peasants had hangnails, nobles in the Qin dynasty had favorite foods, workers in the 1700s liked seeing flowers growing in pavement cracks, a cook in medieval Iran teared up cutting onions, a mom in 1300 told her son not to get grass stains on his clothes, some girl in the past loved staying up late to see the sunrise. There are scriptures all over the world, painstakingly crafted hundreds of years ago with paw prints and spelling mistakes or drawings covering up mistakes. A bunch of teenage girls 2,000 years ago gathered to walk around their hometown, getting fast food and laughing with their friends. 2 friends shared blankets before people lived in houses. A mother ran a fine comb through a child's hair and told it to stop squirming sometime in the thousands. There are covered up sewing mistakes and couture dresses from the 1800s. Some poor Roman burnt their food so well past recognition that they just buried the entire pot. There are broken dishes hidden in gardens of people no one even remembers anymore. The poor are not there by chance or by blind and cruel fate, nor for most of them is poverty a choice. Yet there are those who still presume to make this claim, thus revealing their own blindness and cruelty. I was so hopeful I could be a Catholic again after the disaster that Francis was. Guess we just get Francis 2.0 now, and I am heartbroken. How do I stay a Catholic now? I don't want to lose faith, but I am. You belong to someone else, not God. Heartbroken to learn the Pope sympathizes with the poor. How can I continue to believe in God? Catholic faith. The Pope is the closest to God and speaks his word. The Pope. Don't be a jerk to poor people. Fake Catholic. Not what I signed on for. Following people who are into wrestling is just like, holy crap, Johnny Appleseed just hit Werner Herzog, evil art film director themed wrestler, with the Peanuts Puncher 5000. Can't friggin' stand that guy, like all day long. I love modern independent wrestling show names. A dude will be crying going, "You were my brother! You stabbed me in the heart! The scar of your betrayal will never heal!"
And this Sunday at Hargo Bumfrey's Gay Communist Beach Brunchpalooza, I'm giving that pain back tenfold.
I know it's hard, but I so firmly believe the strongest antidote to loneliness is reaching out first and continuing to reach out again and again and again. Excise any scrap of shame you hold about being the person who texts first or pitches the plan or has to get lunch. Everyone is tired and busy and struggling and afraid of feeling unwanted and unimportant. Don't let the people you love feel that way. Reach out first. Don't be a ghost in your own life. This is something I've started to learn to do, and it is so agonizing at first, but then you get people who will text back, who will interact with you and bring you little treats, and that's love, and it's so beautiful. I took my friend to Hocking Hills State Park yesterday, and on our hike, I talked all about the now retired park naturalist who mentored me years ago, along with the professor who also mentored me, and how they got me my first job in my field after college. Like, I went on and on about my memories of them, and the time I spent with them in the park, and then we got to a cave, and they were both inside. I hadn't seen either of them since I moved away 7 years ago, and then I went back to the state park for the first time since, and they were just there, in a cave. They went to the cave together. One of them saw me and said, "Oh, hi, what are you doing here?" Like, hey, fancy us all being here in this cave together, huh? Insane news. Today a man in my city stole a bus and just kept making all the stops. He stole an HRS bus with passengers aboard, then continued to make stops. Hamilton police allege a 36-year-old man, who was already a prohibited driver, got behind the wheel of an idling bus and drove away on a joyride. Man who took Hamilton bus on joyride did a great job driving, left no dings, say police. An upstanding citizen of our great city. You kept making all the stops? Well, people kept ringing the bell. Man jailed for 25 years for killing woman who made wrong turn into his driveway. Exclusive. Ralph Jarl, teen shot after mistakenly going to the wrong house, seeks justice in civil lawsuit. Social worker was beat to death after accidentally knocking on the wrong door. U.S. cleaning woman shot and killed after arriving at wrong home. Reasons I found strangers in my yard at night. I'm not American. Drunk man at wrong house. Not aggressive, just confused. Lost guy trying to find the house of a family member he was supposed to be staying with. He was a few houses down. Man with 4 tiny kittens who had escaped into my yard. He knocked on my door, but I hadn't heard him. Couldn't leave the kittens in a stranger's yard all night, so he slipped through the side gate to look for them. I helped him and we found the kittens. The idea of responding to strangers at your house with gunfire is bonkers.
Mario creepypasta fundamentally doesn't work because you know what Mario would actually do if we saw some dimension warping, 100-handed cosmic horror? He wouldn't lose his mind. He'd take one look at that Shin Megami Tensei looking frigger, pull out his dorky little mushroom-shaped cell phone, hit the 4th number down on his contact list, and go,
Hey, Kirby, I think one of your boys got lost.
or he'd just fight it himself. No, he would not, for 2 reasons. This represents a fundamental misunderstanding of Mario's central plot structure. Mario always gets his butt beat in his initial encounter with an outside context problem, then spends the bulk of the game going around gathering allies and kicking the legs out from under the outside context problem support structure. This sort of thing clearly falls into another protagonist idiom, and Mario is a union man. He's not going to scab on Kirby, perish the thought. Genuinely, why is everyone 12 now? The worst part is that everyone else being 12 is making me more 12 out of necessity. Like, what do you mean my most very strongly held and controversial beliefs now include,
Cover your mouth when you cough, that's yucky.
and
It's good to be nice and bad to be mean. You shouldn't be mean to people.
that's the crap they used to get mad at me on the playground for. They teach you this crap on Care Bears, man. They teach you this crap on the Smurfs. Working on a new unified theory of American reality, I'm calling everyone is 12 now.
I'm strong and I want to have like 50 kids and a farm.
Of course you do. You're 12.
I don't want to eat vegetables. I think steak and french fries is the only meal.
Hell yeah, homie, you're 12.
Maybe if there's crime, we should just send the army.
Bless your heart, my 12-year-old buddy. Rat, the thief of the group. Removing her flip-flops allows her to quickly become silent while moving. No one has ever seen her hands unless they're being robbed. Converse, she's the muscles of the group, and the only one able to grow facial hair. Never talks, just listens. Capable of bench pressing 2 large Mountain Dew bottles simultaneously. Allows Eyes to wear knockoff Converse. Wolf, the leader of the group by virtue of his Slipknot tattoo. His bandana is the only thing keeping him from shapeshifting into a werewolf permanently. Eyes, totally blind, but can still sense everything in the immediate area. Other abilities include slouching and being of indeterminate gender. The captain, real name Edward, only member of the group to be cool enough to not smoke. Transports the group in the Nautilus, a 1990 Volkswagen Polo. Eyes goes in the trunk. Goggles, the loner of the group, resents Wolf's leadership, can fit anything into the TARDIS-like pockets of his trousers, foregoes the typical fedora for a bowler hat. Oh my god, you think we should drive certain bugs to extinction? Should we tell everyone? Should we throw a party? Should we invite oil executives? Things this post says. Advocating for worldwide total extinction of any animal species is bad regardless of how much you personally dislike them. Things this post does not say. You can never kill a bug ever for any reason. We should not enact population control in regards to invasive and disease-carrying organisms. You must allow bugs to feed on you and infest your house and be happy about it the entire time.
Don't ask yourself, am I a good person? Ask yourself, is what I am doing good? Or even, what's a good thing I can do right now? Don't worry about judging and sorting yourself. Just make your best choices.
Okay, but please actually do this, people. There is no such thing as a good person. Stop trying to be one and start trying to do good instead. Essentially, an enormous part of the reason that online leftist spaces suck so much is that they're filled with people who believe it is more important to do nothing wrong than it is to do something right. Listening to 9 Inch Nails. Hear a new Lairda song I've re-listened to over and over. Wow, I can't believe I never noticed this before. I wonder what kind of synth he used. It's very foreboding in a specific way only 9 Inch Nails can achieve. Pause song to write post praising 9 Inch Nails. The synth specifically keeps playing despite the rest of the song being paused. Look outside window. Garbage truck. Same energy. I once thought I was listening to a really interesting conceptual noise album for half an hour, and then realized my phone had died, and I was actually listening to my sister's air conditioner, and I thought it was so clever and cool. Miss Slag trying to charm you. Guys, the origin of this cat's name makes this picture way funnier. So there's a Chinese street cat live stream where someone made a feeder box and placed a camera in it to live stream the street cats that go in and out of the box. Miss Lag is one of these cats. The people that regularly come to the stream claim that this cat has some SCP-like powers because every time she appears in the stream lags out like crazy. Every single time she has appeared, the stream is either lagged, stopped, or the camera goes a little funky. If you go on the Chinese street cat wiki and go to her page, there's a detailed documentation that describes what happens every time she appears on stream. People who talk about what population density is necessary to justify a rail system are wrong, but they're wrong in the opposite way from how they think. Even in Japan, which has more than twice the population density of China, the rail system isn't profitable. Japan Railways makes most of its profit by operating malls and collecting rent from vendors. If you blindly follow profit instead of considering the broader social benefits, the result will always be putting your rail system into a death spiral of rationalization. Stop expecting public transport to turn a profit. That's not what it exists for. The profit transit turns is in what it avoids. Car-driven development, the Ponzi scheme of the suburbs, and in the economic and human opportunity that it creates in the areas it serves. It's a circulatory system. Imagine saying your lungs weren't turning a profit because all they do is move air around. They make everything else in your body possible.
Turns out the horsemen of the apocalypse now prefer to go by shareholder profit, private equity, corporate personhood, and workforce optimization. Shareholder profit, war, the casus belli for attacks on workers' rights. Private equity, pestilence. They're parasites that voraciously strip the value out of a healthy business until it withers and dies. Workforce optimization, famine, cutting hours and employees until the business is starved of staff, barely functioning. Corporate personhood, death, a hollow, shambling mockery of a human with rights and needs. Yeah, I can work with that. Do magpies target you? This 8-year-old's viral research could explain why. Emma Glenfield wants to know why magpies swoop. She's conducting some cutting-edge research. I watched the people he swooped and I recorded it, Emma said. Then I got everything I recorded and I figured out that the people Mr. Swoopsalot swooped were male, they were tall, and that they had thin or receding hair. Emma's survey also asked respondents to rate magpies out of 10, and as it turns out, everybody loves magpies as much as Emma does. People who have been swooped and hurt, swooped and not hurt, or never swooped love magpies, Emma said. She got 30,000 responses to her survey. 30,000! And she's 8, so learning how to use MS Excel for that data wasn't really an option. So she made a graph out of Legos. Legos! Last night, the 11-year-old broke down the Google Slides middle school chat room for me. At first, they used a Google Doc, but the infinite scroll was too chaotic. In the slide deck, each new slide is one post. Some all text, some images, some both. They use Slides comments feature to reply to each other's posts. This allows participants to easily flip between posts using the slide thumbnail navigation, so they can find the conversations they care about easily. He owns the file, and if anyone spams it, deletes other people's posts, or gets nasty, he can revert the file to its previous save state and remove the spammer's access. He did share the file with me on purpose. I think because he was proud and wanted me to see what he'd made. Essentially, they'd created a chat room with moderation and Google Slides so they can get around the school's ban on platforms like Discord. It's kind of brilliant. So in my 3D class, there's another kid named Roy, which is my name, also in 3D class. We aren't allowed to listen to music. So I was talking to our professor, and Roy walked by with earbuds in, and the professor said, "Roy, take those things out of your ears." And I took my hearing aids out of my ears and said, "Sorry." That is the greatest joke I've ever told, and no one laughed, and I honestly feel so underappreciated right now. Honestly, that joke made being deaf completely worth it, and I am an unappreciated comedic genius of my time. I'm beginning to wonder if people laughed, but I just couldn't hear them. This portrayal of a marginalized group was wrong then and is wrong now, and this portrayal of a marginalized group was very progressive for the time period and paved the way for more representation, while likely limited by factors outside of the creator's control, are two statements that can and should absolutely coexist and be kept in mind when interacting with older media. The thing you have to keep in mind about Moby Richard is that it's an explicitly anti-racist text written by a white guy in the 1850s, so you end up with stuff like Ishmael spending an entire paragraph complimenting a Polynesian guy on his skull shape. Hashtag period typical anti-racism. Are they going to eat me alive? Trail runners become prey in newest form of hunting. Nervous reporters chased around English countryside by baying bloodhounds in what could soon be the only legal way to hunt with dogs. Would you like to be chased by a pack of hounds? It's a question often put to highlight the cruelty of hunting, because the answer would seem to be no, or so you would think. Yet increasing numbers of people are volunteering to be chased across the countryside by baying bloodhounds in what could soon be the only legal way to hunt with dogs in England and Wales, rather than pursuing animals or their scents. Normal country latest. Imagine unexpectedly popping up in Valhalla with your pants around your ankles because just half a minute ago you were taking a crap so bad that the Viking gods decided that it should count as dying in battle. Isn't it even worse? You don't just pop up there, you get carried there by a Valkyrie. You're experiencing a gastrointestinal event and are really not having a good time. And then suddenly, without any logical way to be present, there's a winged woman in there with you, in armor, with weapons and helmet, who looks like she could take down Sandor Clegane or Geralt of Rivia in the 10 minutes before waking up, just plucks you from your porcelain throne and doesn't even give you the chance to pull up your pants before carrying you off. This Wojak attempt was made with so much rage, but I don't think it worked. Instead, I think this guy has a beautiful soul. The difficulty, enjoyer. You should really take a break and come back to it later. Maybe if you took a break, you might have more fun. We'll take a break and come back to it later. Yeah, I got stuck there too. I had to take a couple of breaks. Spends his free time taking a break from his hobby. Personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with the difficulty. I'm obsessed with this genre of Wojak, like the one that makes whoever created it look like the deranged one in the argument. Other example. 2018. Why do we need all these rules for banks and trains? 2023. Oh, I enforce federal worker health and safety and pollution regulations. When I was learning my trade, when my classmates and I were having a chuckle over the, well, duh, level of specificity written into the Code of Federal Regulations, try no hazardous material shall be stored in crew berthing on for size. I'll never forget the silence that followed when our instructor spoke these words: "Your regulations are written in blood." These regulations were not written on a whim. They were written because someone thought they could cut costs by storing however many more pounds of radioactive, toxic, carcinogenic, or whatever else material in the same rooms where the human beings they paid to transport those materials slept, and then did that because no one was telling them not to. They were written because people died. Interesting. Apparently cortisol production depletes magnesium stores, and I have a lot of symptomatic overlap with magnesium deficiency, and it can apparently help migraines and ADHD. I think I'm gonna try supplementing magnesium glycinate. L-threonate sounds really interesting too, as that's magnesium that can cross the blood-brain barrier and apparently is super useful for memory and crap. I need to mag it up?
You need to get so magged up. You've probably had 2 heart attacks and a minor stroke already, and the only prescription is insane amounts of magnesium. 1 stroke? Don't be so modest. He's having one right now.
You're saying I need to become a magnesium-based life form?
Yes, if you want to live, you need to evolve. You need to transcend the carbon barrier. Go to the apothecary and buy insane amounts of magnesium. It will reverse the damage to your circulatory system.
There are 100 possible moves on a chessboard. That means a 100% chance of winning, if you play your cards right. Sports are back and bigger than ever. More than 100 people are posting about sports. Whenever a website autoplays a video in the corner, I pause it, put some popcorn on the stove, call my partner and 17 children between the ages of 25 and 34 into the room, and watch it with them on our 170-inch television. Then we discuss choices we like to make as consumers. For some teams, week 1 of the NFL season will be a week 1. For others, however, it will truly be a week 1. God, this is such a friggin' bad post. It is continually inspiring to me that there's a nearly middle-aged man who writes for a sports website who posts like us. Truly, the poster spirit can be found anywhere. Seaweed packaging is shifting single-use plastic out of stadiums. Napla is aiming to expand in Europe and displace 1 billion units of single-use plastic by 2030. Napla, the company which makes seaweed-based packaging to replace single-use plastics, started with its 2 French, and Spanish founders, Pierre Pastelier and Rodrigo Garcia Gonzalez, experimenting in their student kitchen while at Imperial College London. Now, Napla has replaced more than 21 million items of single-use plastic across Europe and is aiming to displace 1 billion units by 2030. In partnership with Just Eat, Napla's packaging was used at the UEFA Women's Final at Wembley Stadium, London in 2022. From 7 types of folded carton board boxes that year, it's grown into a catalog of over 50 different designs. The fact that we only have Herculean task and Sisyphean task feels so limiting. So here's a few more tasks for your repertoire. Icarian task. When you have a task you know you're going to fail at anyways, so why not have some fun with it before it all comes crashing down? Cassandrian task. When you have to deal with people you know won't listen to you, despite having accurate information, and having to watch them fumble about when you told them the solution from the start. Most often witnessed in customer service. Odyssean task. You'll complete it, but it'll take 20 times longer than it should and involve multiple side quests and mini adventures. Note the logic. If some people want to rely solely on digital financial transactions, let them, but don't take away cash for the rest of us. My $50 note can't be hacked. If I'm robbed, I lose $50, not my entire life savings. If my $50 note is accidentally immersed in water, it still works. My $50 note doesn't need batteries. It can't be out of range, and it won't break if it's dropped. If the system is down, I can still use my note. My $50 note can be put into a charity box or given to a homeless person. Sure, I use a card sometimes for large purchases, but for everything else, please leave me the option of cash. It simplifies life. Concept. A mermaid who collects human artifacts, but like exclusively objects that humans have dramatically cast into the sea in moments of high emotion, catharsis, or personal revelation. Each item is carefully mounted above a little index card that outlines the circumstances of its hurling in terse clinical prose. How many outdated cell phones does she have? From businessmen who realize that family is more important. Fewer than you'd think. For a variety of fascinating demographic and cultural reasons, importance of family cell phones are considerably more likely to be hurled into lakes than oceans. She's co-authored a paper on the subject that's due to be published next month. I hope it's been peer-reviewed. I was in the physics lab today and we were working with lasers, so the lab freaks, legal name, were being very careful to stress that we do not turn around or look behind us, because we'll get extremely blinded by the power of high-strength lasers. And I'm not gonna lie, it was actually extremely hard to resist turning around. I misjudged Orpheus. It turns out this isn't extremely easy, actually. Okay, I'll be honest. I 100% looked back at the lasers, actually multiple separate lasers multiple different times. They were pretty, and I didn't get blinded. So clearly lab safety isn't real, and you should always risk it, because taking risk is awesome. Hashtag gambling. But my butt is not making it out of the underworld. You know, that Mythbusters post legitimately changed my life. Before seeing it, I had exponentially more guilt and stress about not being able to sleep, which of course further exacerbated my inability to sleep. Now, every time I wake up about 3 a.m., knowing I have to get up at 6:45, instead of stressing and panicking about how my day is going to be sleep deprived and miserable, I just tell myself, time to activate Mythbusters protocol, and lie there with my eyes closed, safe in the knowledge that I'm measurably reducing later feelings of exhaustion. And when this happens, about 70% of the time, the reduction of guilt and stress means I actually do fall back asleep. So all in all, instead of getting only 3 or 4 hours of sleep, I get 5 to 6.5. The biggest questions Detective Pikachu answered. No one but professional trainers has a full team of 6 in the Pokemon universe, because it would be a friggin' gigantic hassle to deal with 6 animals, let alone different types that need different things. Some people don't evolve their Pokemon, because imagine having a friggin' cat, and then you can choose to make the cat 5 times as big and strong. Would you do this if you weren't battling? Technically, if your cat isn't battling, it doesn't evolve. That does, however, give cat owners a strong incentive to not let their cat outside, because realistically, any cat that's allowed to roam free is gonna rack up XP until it evolves. Tom Hardy saying he feels at odds with his status as a male action hero because he feels intrinsically feminine is miles and miles more gender friggery than anything Harry Styles has done in his entire career. Boy Band Boy could never effortlessly be this. The full quote, asked if he had coitus with men. Of course I have. I'm an actor for frig's sake. I've played with everything and everyone. I love the form and the physicality, but now that I'm in my 30s, it doesn't do it for me. I'm done experimenting, but there's plenty of stuff in a relationship with another man, especially gay men, that I need in my life. A lot of gay men get my thing for shoes. I have definite feminine qualities, and a lot of gay men are incredibly masculine. A lot of people say I seem masculine, but I don't feel it. I feel intrinsically feminine. I'd love to be one of the boys, but I always felt a bit on the outside. Maybe my masculine qualities come from overcompensating because I'm not one of the boys. My roommate's car is named Barf. It was originally bought from a dealership called Garf, but then she tinkered with the G on the license plate thing so it looks like a B, and now the car is just called Barf. My wife once asked our roommate where she was parked in a group chat, but she messed up the word parked and instead spelled it as garked. And then me and my roommate just started referring to parking as garking, because it's just really fun to give my wife crap. But also, at some point it stopped being ironic, and we just started calling parking garking. Then today, me and my wife were looking out the window, and we saw our roommate struggling to do a 3-point turn into a parking space. And as fun as it is to give my wife crap, it's also really fun to give our roommate crap. So we ran outside and we ran around her car while chanting, "Gark the barf! Gark the barf! Gark the barf!" And then she did, eventually, gark the barf. I always get drawn back to Al Gore telling voters that he'd only raise taxes on the top 1%. And then after the election, a poll showed that something like 20% of voters thought they were in the top 1%, and another 20% thought they would be in the next 5 years. Just a total tragic disconnect. Man, so much this. Every time there's any kind of actual in-depth survey, we find that the American people are abysmally ignorant about even the most basic political facts. But the pundit class just immediately forgets and proceeds with political analysis based on subtle policy differences. Having anti-role models is a beautiful thing. It's not easy to live up to someone else's behavior, but it is easy to lasso yourself into behaving right when you realize you're reminding yourself of the worst person you've ever met in your entire life. My older brother literally quit smoking cigarettes because he hated our boss so much. I got him a job at the restaurant where I was a line cook, so we were working together, which was kind of cool. We didn't know our boss smoked, but evidently the guy was a social smoker. And one night when my older brother was out taking a smoke break trying to get away from the boss for a few minutes, our boss came out and bummed a smoke from him. My older brother put his cigarette out so he wouldn't have to stand there and smoke with the boss, and he was so disgusted by having something in common with the man that it was the last cigarette my brother ever smoked. I don't think I can stress enough how many people on here need a hobby. Like 95% of what people refer to as jobless behavior is actually just hobbyless behavior. Take up watercolors or tabletop or join a hiking group or something. You probably won't feel as much of an incessant need to freak out on the internet every day.
bud. The only hobby a lot of us can afford is breathing and drinking water. Some of us don't eat most days, so our kids can. And you're out here acting like pain is free and time is plentiful. Blah, 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 blah.
This person wrote a manifesto. I ain't reading all that. But this is literally the type of behavior I'm talking about. The idea hobbies all cost money is so removed from reality. If you have the time to pick up your phone and write 7 paragraphs on how I'm victimizing you with my offhanded post, you have the time to watch a movie on YouTube with your very same phone instead. Come on now. How is you freaking out on the internet helping any of these issues? I am so absolutely, utterly scared that my insane grandfather in his 80s, who runs miles every morning, is going to leave me a bird in his will. And I'm especially scared he's going to leave me a large parrot named Captain Hook. Hook has been trying to make me his child bride since I was like 6 years old. And every time I see him again, which has only been a couple of times with decades in between, Hook is like,
You, it's always been you. Ever since you were born, I've known we were meant to be.
Captain Hook, you are a bird and I am a lesbian, and I don't want an eternal sentinel, Captain Hook! One time, I told a group of lesbian and bi women that I have never watched Wicked, and they were shocked, gagged, gooped. But you're LGBT, you like women, how have you not seen Wicked? Yeah, well, I like women, not musicals. I'm not gay enough for the gays. My husband and I are at a friend's house to watch RuPaul's Drag Race. Everyone else is talking about some queen. I have no idea what's going on. I just smile and say, work, every few minutes. I felt this way for decades. I've accepted my fate. I hope I'm never found out. All this just to frig men. I'm actually glad we don't live in an RPG world. We really take for granted being able to coexist with most animals. I don't want to have to pull out a longsword and beat the crap out of 6 crabs and 2 snails while a starfish snipes me with magic bullets every time I go to the beach. It used to be like that. Crabs, certain snails, and starfish will all prey on bivalves. Actually, so do we, obviously. It's not that we don't live in a JRPG world, but that we're high-level bosses in a JRPG world for scallops. Okay, but if a scallop manages to friggin' parry my chopsticks, I think they honestly deserve the win, not gonna lie. Wheelchair users deserve a minimum of 3 wheelchairs to meet different needs, like bare minimum of indoor chair, outdoor chair, and off-road chair. Chairs that meet different needs for transport, activity, positioning needs, energy levels, etc. There is not one chair that can meet every need. Wheelchair users deserve to have multiple chairs that meet specific needs, no matter how complex their seating/positioning needs. We deserve to at least have a backup if our chair breaks that is just as suited to our needs. For anyone who doesn't know, wheelchairs are very expensive, and insurance will usually only cover one every 5 years, or only cover a new one if your needs have changed significantly. The expense is especially true for anyone who has complex positioning needs, i.e. requiring tilt, recline, elevation, and power wheelchairs, general Group 3 power wheelchair needs, one-arm drive for manual wheelchairs, etc. As with so many disability-related issues, those most impacted by their disability are most at risk of harm when adequate support is out of reach. My son has invented a holiday called Wolfenute. It's when the spirit of the wolf brings and hides small gifts around the house for everyone. People who have had, or are kind of dogs get better gifts than anyone else. You eat roast meat because wolves eat meat, and cake decorated like a full moon. A holiday to the spirit of wolves that celebrates people who are kind of dogs? I can 100% get behind this. So we'll be celebrating Wolfenute. It's on the 23rd of November if anyone else has moved to celebrate it. If you do, send me pics so I can show my kid his idea spread. That moment when your 7-year-old makes up a holiday and people start wanting to actually celebrate it. Reading old books gets an extra layer of fun when you start to piece together how all these historical eras run together. The heroes of one era become the stodgy, out-of-touch parents of the next. 1920s bright young things are calling people Victorians in an okay boomer way. Victorian novels have Regency rakes hanging around like old hippies. Regency novels have old Georgians who still powder their hair. It's just fun to see the mixing of generations, the mix of old and new, because history's not neat little boxes. It's life all jumbled together. I can't get enough of middle-aged people in the 1930s speaking nostalgically about their youths in the 90s. Be me at work, pooping on company time, hashtag hell yeah, scrolling Tumblr, hashtag furry mpreg smut, hashtag hell yeah, drop phone, it lands on the ground in between my stall and the stall next to me, face up, the last post I was looking at is on it, hashtag furry mpreg smut, hashtag oh no, the stall next to me is occupied, hashtag furry mpreg smut, hashtag full nod, immediately scramble to pick up and or destroy phone, in my haste I knock it closer to the other occupant, no longer able to reach it, hashtag furry mpreg smut, hashtag face up, silence and stillness for 8,000 years. The other occupant wordlessly kicks my phone back over to me. Hashtag furry mpreg smut. Hashtag my screen timeout is 10 minutes. I stay in the bathroom for an additional 20 minutes to make sure the other person never sees my face or other identifiable features. Write this post. I'm still in here.
Our new job launched its mandatory AI transcription program designed to streamline our workflow, and not only does it melt down the moment it has to transcribe non-white customers, but it keeps hallucinating the existence of a mysterious boy named Dorian, who shows up in every third call summary. Caller got into a car accident on their way to work, their non-existent son Dorian was hurt, got kicked out of a bar and broke their ankle, their son Dorian was the one who broke it. I now spend more time having to de-Dorian the call summary than if I had just written it myself. Really funny, we're required to use this now. The picture of Dorian Gray Eye. More people with the same first name should date. I want to study the linguistical influence. More people with the same first name should date, marry, and then share the same surname. Give more couples the same legal first and last name. I want to hear about the consequences. Since posting this, I've heard about couples with the same first name who also share a last name, and it makes airport travel inconvenient. Use different nicknames. For practicality, use the same nickname, because frig, why not? Have identical spellings but different pronunciations. Have identical spellings, but the spelling in question is one of the weird ones, so they both constantly have their shared name spelled wrong. Partner A's first name is Partner B's surname. The reason why Doom runs on everything, aside from being an obsessively well-optimized game, is because in the late 90s, id Software publicly released the game source code, which allows people to, among other things, port it to whatever device they want. This is but a glimpse of what a world where anyone can do whatever they want with art would look like. Every game could be Doom in a post-copyright world. Also, as someone pointed out in the tags, if you've played any shooters made in the last 20-something years at all, chances are that without knowing, you've played several games whose engine is ultimately descended from id Software source code releases of the various iterations of the Quake engine.
Look at this video of a child disappointed at their expensive gift. Children are so spoiled these days.
That's cool. So why did their parents upload their small child being upset online in a public video shared to the entire world? Why did they even save the recording? Also, I don't think someone is spoiled just because they don't like something expensive. It's the thought that counts, but a lot of these gifts never have thought put into them. It must feel very frustrating to ask for something and get something completely different and then be punished for being upset your request was ignored, especially if the gift they didn't want was super expensive. Like, you have all the money. Why wouldn't you just give this literal 10-year-old what they wanted for Christmas? Every Wednesday, I walk a riverwalk trail from my work to rowing, and there's this sculpture on the trail. Pokemon Go affectionately refers to it as the Hollow Man, and it's kind of cool on its own, except when I normally walk the trail, it's after work, at night. This thing is 7 feet tall, and the actual title of the sculpture is The Unkillable Human. It's terrifying! It became so beautiful to me after learning the actual name of it. This would be deleted off the SCP Wiki in a day for being too cliche. It's my favorite kind of real thing. An arrow may have your name on it, but a fireball is addressed to whom it may concern. Ah yes, this. Fire-based wizard spells, magic missile, frig your left nut in particular, flaming sphere, frig you collectively, fireball, to whom it may concern. Please consider this an official friggening. Wall of fire, the great wall of frig you, flame strike, frig you and frig your air support too, delayed blast fireball, frig you later, incendiary cloud, cloudy with a chance of frig you, meteor storm, frig all y'all. The world is so sanitized, it genuinely makes me so angry. You can't access any smut websites in America without providing a selfie and your legal ID. If you save one photo of a shirtless guy to a Pinterest board, not only will Pinterest disable pin recommendations for that board based on their decency algorithm, they'll notify you that your board violates their policy. This website, and a few others, won't let you search any lewd terms or even vaguely naughty words without censoring it for you and saying, "This search looked freaky, so we prevented you from seeing results." Like, what the frig are we doing? I'm a 28-year-old person. I'm an adult. Bro, I freaking love the DB Cooper case. Nothing about this whole situation sounds real. None of the passengers on the plane realized they were being hijacked until the plane landed 2 hours after it was supposed to, and the FBI showed up with suitcases full of money. The note about the bomb almost went unnoticed because the flight attendant thought she was being harassed, so she didn't read it. One of the main suspects was the first trans woman in Washington to have gender-affirming surgery. A reporter who was so dead set on his suspect that he brought him to court was so upset about being wrong that he went catatonic and was treated with electroshock therapy, and it worked! There's been multiple I'm DB Cooper death confessions. He never even said his name was DB Cooper. Either he got away with $1 million in today's money in the most iconic and harmless crime in American history, or he impaled himself on a pine tree while falling a zillion miles an hour in the dark while clutching duffel bags full of cash. And either option is equally hilarious. He wore a clip-on tie. He committed an act of sky piracy. What in the friggin' Looney Tunes?
Join a union. Hear people constantly complaining that the current union leadership is super corrupt. It's all just the same 10 guys making all the decisions in secret, and nobody else in the union ever gets to know what's going on. Go to the monthly union meetings that are completely open to all 1,200 union members. The only attendees are the same 10 guys every month, giving detailed reports about everything that's going on. I went to my union meeting tonight, and the retirees' monthly complaint about our healthcare was that for some reason, it only lets doctors prescribe 6 Viagra pills at a time, and they want to frig more than 6 times a month. That's verbatim. Think about what you could be missing by not going to your union meetings. My favorite thing about being an archer in Skyrim is when the slow motion kill cam follows the arrow and you get to sit back and watch as it just absolutely misses the target. The great thing about this is that the computer has calculated that the arrow will strike the target as a critical hit, but then when the kill cam engages, it changes the physics in game. I think having the arrow be the focal point rather than the player causes the formula to change, and in doing so, it can change the trajectory so dramatically that you miss. I once saved the game and tried the same shot multiple times with kill cam turned on and then off, which proved the perfect correlation that it was the camera itself that was messing up the shot. My son ate an unknown substance from a plant and we didn't know what it was. My hubby called me at work and told me what happened, then proceeded to tell me he ate it too. So if something happened, he could tell medical professionals exactly what was happening because my son was too young to tell them himself. When my son was 3 months old, I went to make a bottle at like 2 a.m. and forgot to add the formula and fed him a couple ounces of water without realizing, and I called poison control and freaked out, and they told me to go to bed. When my son was 3, he ate a brand new stick of deodorant at 5 a.m. and the poison control guy said, "God, this early." Apparently a requirement for working at Poison Control is a talent for stand-up comedy. Discourse surrounding AI these days often feels like a guy showing you his shovel and you say, "That's a nice shovel," and he says, "I'm going to perform surgery on my mother with this shovel," and you say, "Oh God, please don't do that, that's not what a shovel is for." Well, you know what they say, when you've invested billions of dollars into hammers, every problem looks like a nail, and you keep handing these hammers to your users and they go, "I don't really think I needed this hammer," but I don't have any nails that need hammering in right now, and "This isn't a nail, this is a glass vase that'll break if I hit it with a hammer," and "Didn't you used to have like other tools available that might be better suited to this job?" And you tell them to suck it up because you've replaced all your screwdrivers and wrenches and box cutters and crates and ladders and paint with hammers because your shareholders need to see an increase in value from your hammer investments. When are the stupid questions during interviews going to stop? I had an interview and partway through, the interviewer asked me what my favorite drink is, and I said water. He gave me a weird look and said, "Come on, you can do better than that." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything, and we just sat there and looked at each other for about 15 seconds in silence. He stops the interview and said, "I'm not what they're looking for." I'm not sure what that was all about, but I feel like I dodged a bullet. A coworker of mine shared a story that she interviewed for a place. They asked her if she could become an animal, what would she be? She said dog, because they're loyal, friendly, and protect their family. The interviewer said that's wrong, because dogs are lazy. The correct answer was giraffe, because they reach high for leaves and that's a sign of ambition. Huh? All cyberpunk stories are like, if you want to crack open a cyber croissant this nasty, you're gonna need a real top-notch E-driller. I know a guy, Toledo Kill Switch. He's got the frag ordinance, you need to grizzle this bocce ball. If you're terribly curious why this is, it's because William Gibson, the guy whose work is largely synonymous with first-wave literary cyberpunk, spent most of the 1970s bumming around the Toronto illicit substance scene. For many years, he claimed he'd moved to Canada in order to avoid the Vietnam draft, though he later admitted that it was mostly for easier access to Zaza, and much of the distinctive argot of his work is based on the youth counterculture slang he observed during that period of his life. So basically, the reason that dialogue in classic cyberpunk sounds like that is because the characters all talk like teenage Canadian addicts from the 70s. My dad's best friend who transitioned after being in a car wreck with a moose posted transition pictures and she's looking amazing. Wait, like, are these just 2 facts about her? Or did the moose somehow crack her egg along with her car? She wasn't publicly out before the moose incident, but she needed extensive reconstructive surgery and just snuck gender-affirming surgeries into that. So yeah, to most people, it definitely looked like she had a near-death moose experience and they just rebuilt her into a woman. We can rebuild her, stronger, better, happier. We have the technology. MTA worker tasted water flooding in Queens Midtown Tunnel to determine source of leak. New York is a beautiful city. The case was finally cracked when a brave MTA worker tasted the mysterious liquid pouring into the tube. Transit officials said on Wednesday, the worker found the water was salty, which meant it was coming in from the East River and not from a burst water main. How we determined it was salt? MTA Bridges and Tunnels president Kathy Sheridan said during a news conference, "Yes, someone did taste it." Yum yum, MTA chair Jan O'Leary Lieber responded, "Yum yum."
Stop just asking, is it normal? Start asking, is it harming anyone? Lots of harmful things are normalized in this society, and lots of things considered weird or rare are completely harmless. Whether something is considered normal or common shouldn't be the deciding factor in whether it's okay. Like, a lot of disabled and neurodivergent and mentally ill ways of living and expressing yourself are both not normal and not harming anyone, and it's the last part we should focus our attention on. People want normal to be a moral concept instead of a statistical one so bad. You've hit the nail in the head. I've always been dog crap at pottery on a wheel because I have weak noodle arms and can't hold my hands firmly in place to center the clay, but I finally realized the root issue was that my legs are short since I have the limb-torso proportions of a dachshund, and I couldn't brace my elbows on my legs, so I put bricks under my feet and now I can sort of do it. I've tried to learn twice in the past from tall people, but had a revelation when I watched a medium-sized guy throwing. The moral of the story is, don't give up, maybe you just need bricks. I've yet to encounter a problem in life that couldn't be solved with a brick. Reminds me of when I worked at a warehouse and the management was constantly whining at us for not hitting metrics. And by us, I mean me and one other guy. Literally 2 people with 1 forklift between them. They got so whiny that they brought in a multi-decade veteran of a sister location to show us what we're doing wrong. He shadowed us for less than half an hour, said, "Is this everyone on your team? This is the work of 5 people minimum," then left. Eventually that other guy quit, so it was just me pulling consecutive 14-hour shifts. They finally decided to cave and hire another full-timer and 3 part-timers, but they waited until after the Christmas rush. Why is this all management literally everywhere? I keep thinking about the interaction I had with a guy who angrily told me that AI minds are actually minds, and relationships with them can absolutely be real relationships, saying that I need to start accepting that this is a new class of being and they're intelligent and do have thoughts of their own. I'm having a hard time finding the words to describe how disturbing it is to watch these mental disorders spreading so rapidly. I mean, everyone anthropomorphizes objects and animals to some extent. That's just how projection works. I've caught myself accidentally apologizing to the Roomba like anyone else, but to actually formulate a belief system that these chatbots are real people with real minds and real consciousness is taking that projection to the most insane levels imaginable and forming an entire worldview out of it. I had a dream last night that I ran away from fascists and ended up at this farm that was full of this weird but very large prehistoric animal that was like a fluffy tapir, and I want to know if it actually exists. It was about the size of a dairy cow, like this, but with big fluffy hair with white streaks. You saw a Baku, and it ate your nightmare about the fascists. Baku are Japanese supernatural beings that are said to devour nightmares. According to legend, they were created by the spare pieces that were left over when the gods finished creating all of their animals. They have a long history in Japanese folklore and art, and more recently have appeared in manga and anime. Oh my god! I've always disliked the creep of American culture over Australia, but I think this is the worst thing yet. Retailers have started running Black Friday sales. This is very wrong because we don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Black Friday is January 13th, 1939, when bushfires wiped out 2 million hectares and killed 71 people. It's really upsetting that the first page of Google results for Black Friday Australia are all sales. Please, that is not our country. Black Friday is the second largest by-area bushfire in recorded Australian history. It led to a royal commission on forestry management to mitigate future fires. If I had seen the transition from sepia to color in Wizard of Oz in 1939, I would have lost my crap. I would have started screaming in the theater. Okay, no, but like, I am still so enamored by this transition, y'all, because when Dorothy opens the door of the house onto the colors of Oz, the inside of the house is still sepia toned, and they did that by literally making the interior and the costume and everything sepia toned. You had a double for Judy Garland in a specifically created sepia toned dress in a sepia toned set, opening the door, backing out of a frame, and then the Dorothy that steps back into frame is Judy Garland in her full color costume and makeup. Avatar: The Last Airbender just so happened to write one of the most insane and complex brother-sister relationships in all of television, and yet for some reason, everyone focused on Zuko and Azula instead, even though they're basically just normal siblings, and as such, not even that interesting. Their dynamic is more fraught and tragic than you could ever comprehend. This is just a typical sibling interaction. Katara and Sokka are what happens when you are your brother's mother and your brother also tries to be your father. You love them, you hate them, you're half of them, you can't stand them, you look after them, they keep you safe. Azula and Zuko are both just gifted kid burnouts with a dad that only loves the winner. I think people have truly lost any ability to be patient with storytelling. I don't understand this. They'll explain it if you wait. I don't like how this episode left things hanging. There's a continuation next week. This character is flat. Wait for them to be fleshed out? So many of the complaints I see about shows lately are people being confused by things that the show wants you to be confused by. That's the fun of mystery and foreshadowing. You absolute goblins. The main character is
is also confused, and they're gonna do a big reveal and explanation later if you would just friggin' wait. My 7-year-old ADHD baby.
I don't remember where I put my toothbrush. I just had it in my hand 3 seconds ago.
Same kid.
You told me 8 Mondays ago at 4:11 p.m. that we could go to Target today. I remembered because I was wearing a blue shirt with 3 buttons and you were eating 2 grapes.
Last week, I asked my dad if he remembers sneaking me into the cinema to see Deep Rising in 1998. He said he thought so, but didn't remember which cinema it was. He was stunned that I not only remembered the exact cinema, but also the time of day and the shirt I was wearing. Today, I forgot what someone told me over the phone, even though the conversation ended 3 seconds ago. Every person I've ever suggested to that going through your partner's phone not only invades their privacy, but also the privacy of all the people who have possibly texted very personal things to them have acted like they genuinely never thought of that before. Like, how many of you have sent or received texts about mental or physical health issues on your phone? Embarrassing problems like grades or money or hygiene. Intricate details of family dynamics. You might want a no secrets type relationship, but your partner has other people's secrets to keep too. Lol. My favorite sports fact ever is that in the 1990s, 2 cardiac surgeons watched a Formula 1 race to save the lives of countless kids. The Great Ormond Street Hospital for Children, GOSH, kept losing the lives of patients after successful heart surgeries. Specifically, the 10 to 15 minutes after a bona fide clinically successful surgery, patients would die. And so, the 2 surgeons filmed a handover after heart surgery and sent it to the Ferrari pit crew, who were told to critique and improve handover process. And from this, we got this. The error rate during patient handovers dropped from 30% to 10% with the Formula 1 informed protocol.